Welcome to abombtozzzax. With me, Colin Holt. And my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. Here they come!
Hello, Team Zzzaxers. Hello, A-Bombers. Welcome to abombtozzzax, my favourite Marvel character, where I, Colin Holt, comedian and belly dancer, why not? Why not? Go through my favourite thing in the world, the Marvel Comics universe. Yes, I'm a sad nerd. Deal with it. We are talking about every single character. We're telling you everything you know about every single character, all the way from A-Bomb all the way to Zzzax, or A to Z. Joining me are some of my dear friends this time. It's lovely Nick Crick. Hello, Nick.
Hello. Also a sad nerd. Keep dealing with it.
Or very sad nerd. The other guys on the podcast, Jamie Firth and Dan Snellgrove, they're not here right now, but they would beat us up if they ever met us in real life. They are real men.
Yeah, they're proper guys.
Oh, so this week we're still in the A's, obviously. The next A is Anole. Anole, which means lizard or a type of lizard. Quite not a great superhero name, perhaps, which he comments on. Anole himself comments, it's not the best. I get it. So with Anole, we meet the new X-Men, which Anole is a part of. So this week we're going to talk about the new X-Men. There's probably going to be another new X-Men one because there's a lot of them. We're just going to cover 6 characters: Anole, Surge, Rockslide, Hellion, Mercury, and Elixir. Okay, let's get into that in a sec. But first, I would like to ask you, dear listeners, to help us out by, first of all, telling your friends about the podcast if you like it. Secondly, rating and reviewing it on iTunes. Writing a nice review is lovely. Subscribing to it is great. Any of these things will help us and help keep the podcast going. And if you really like the podcast, please become a Patreon. Go to patreon.com/abombtozzzax, where you can get some extra content. We record extra bonus episodes where we talk about some of the weirdest appearances of some of these characters, some of the most interesting, when they died, their first appearances, things like that. And also you get the spreadsheet, which tells you all the characters we're going to be reading, what comics we're going to be reading, so you can read along with us. And what else, Nick?
We'll start giving you a comic pick of the month as well.
Oh, yeah.
And if you go to the advanced tier, you could also get to suggest characters or maybe individual comics for us to talk about in one of the Patreon mini eps.
There we go. You can pick your favorite characters, the most obscure ones, if you like. You can also join for free. That's fine. Obviously, the money helps us keep the podcast going. But if you want to join for free, you can also get access to all the reading order for a start. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. Let's jump into New X-Men. So New X-Men were created by Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost. You might have heard of them. They did animated series, really good one called Wolverine and the X-Men. Have you seen that, Nick?
I think I watched the first couple of episodes when it was on and lost track and didn't keep up with it, but I liked what I saw.
I think it's one of the best X-Men things ever. They also did Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated series, which is also really, really good. And it does the Avengers. This is, oh God, we can really nerd out, can't we, on this one? But it does the Avengers properly, as in it's Hulk, Iron Man, Ant-Man, Wasp, and Thor, and then Cap joins, and then Black Panther joins. It's really good. But it's not just good because it's, sure, they're doing it properly. You know, it's done really well and adapted really well, but it's so satisfying for comics readers. So that's who they are. Now, there's a few different new X-Men. I think before we get into this, Nick, I'm just going to explain to listeners about new X-Men and about what is going on. in the in the X-Men universe and the Marvel Comics universe generally, because there's a lot. And if you jump straight in to read these comics, which I hope you do, because they're really good, I think. Nick, spoiler, I think they're good.
I enjoyed them. I'd not read these ones before. This was a gap in my X-Men knowledge, but I enjoyed what I read.
I think they're great. I think they're some of the best. And sadly, have kind of fallen by the wayside a bit. I think partly because of all the events going on at the time. But anyway, let me try and explain. So there was a thing called New X-Men that was created by Grant Morrison. This was in 2000 when the movie came out. They wanted to revamp the X-Men. Grant Morrison is non-binary. They did a really good job of creating this rebuilt, reimagined world, which was fantastic. And then later on, there was a thing called New X-Men, which was literally, as it says, they were new X-Men. They were the kids, they were the students, and they were like a X-Men Junior kind of idea. Now, just before that, there was a thing called X-Men Academy. I think I might be getting this mixed up. That's quite boring. And also the New Mutants, which are, oh my God, I'm confusing everyone here. But basically, the New Mutants were kind of the original junior class to the X-Men. Right? Yeah. That was like back in the 80s. Then they came back in the early 2000s. And with them was this whole kind of high school setup. So the people who were the New Mutants are now the teachers. And they've got all these students. And it is quite, I hate to say it, this is created by Nunzio De Filippis, Christina Weir, and Kieran Grant, who are the ones who created most of the characters we're going to talk about, if not all of them. But it's fine. It's just it's very high school romance drama type stuff. And it's quite slow. It's quite boring. Some of the characters are really tedious. There's one called Tag, who I think can tag you. As in, it is quite a fun battle. I think he tags certain people and then they're under his control or something like that. I can't remember. I remember his real name's Brian, which I found, which is amusing for a character who's meant to be in his 16 in the 2000s. Unlikely to call Brian, probably. And also I had
an image of him just spraying graffiti on people. He's just going around and tagging them.
Yeah, I mean that would be more fun in a way.
I like that, like a sort of mutant Banksy.
They do quite a lot of that. There's like one called Ink who creates tattoos. Do you know what I mean? So they do try and make it a bit youthy and cool. And there's like one called Wallflower and one called Wind Dancer. Two girl mutants. Wind Dancer just creates wind, but not in that way, obviously. And Wallflower, I think, vanishes into walls. They're really boring. I hate to say it, but they're really boring. But there are some good ideas here. Including characters like Prodigy, who can be near you and understand everything you understand. So he's kind of a super brain. He's a really cool, fun character. But anyway, the point is, when Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost get their hands on it, dark things happen. It immediately goes incredibly violent, really quite upsettingly so, but it's great. It's a lot of fun. These poor kids go through hell. The other thing to mention, there was quite a few events going on. I'm just going to try and sum up in like 3 sentences. House of M, which ended in the Scarlet Witch getting rid of all mutants. She says no more mutants. Weirdly, what that actually meant is there was 198 mutants. It's never been explained why, but obviously for marketing reasons, they can't take away Wolverine's powers.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Right?
And the 198 mutants are pretty much most of the core main X-Men characters, so they can still continue to have their ongoing series.
Yeah, all the ones you know. And then randomly, like, Blob lost his powers. And I think unpleasant thing where he had too much skin or something, which I'm not sure about that. It's not a very nice idea. So then there was also a thing called... So that led to decimation, as in literally they've been decimated. Not literally, in fact, because I think decimated means they lost 10%. So it's not decimated by any means. And then after that, is a thing called where the One, who are a Sentinel squad, but they're not evil Sentinels, as in they're not mutant hunted Sentinels. They're government Sentinels that are there to protect the mutants. So at this point, Xavier's school basically becomes a kind of refugee hideout, protected place, protected, ironically, by these huge robots that used to hunt them down and kill them. it creates a lot of, it's kind of a fun idea, I guess, but it creates a lot of quite boring stories, I thought, where they always have to find a reason why they can leave the compound, or they have to
Yeah,
sneak past the Sentinels. And the actual Sentinel and Sentinel crew, the one crew, I don't know what it stands for, ONE, as in that stands for.
Office of National Emergency, I think.
Very good, very good. I like that. They're all pretty forgettable and really useless and really bad at their job, and especially at this point, because the first thing Craig and Chris do is, well, all the all the X-Men who are now depowered, the kids, are being put on buses and secretly shipped out of the mansion, because they can't really stay there anymore, but also they're still kind of in danger. Some of them go back to their families. A lot of them, their families don't want them, even though they're no longer mutants, which is really sad. I think they really tap into this feeling of isolation when you're a teenager, a feeling of your parents not wanting you, of not really knowing who you are, and all this stuff. Anyway, the bus goes out, and a group called the Purifiers bomb it. They bomb the bus, killing all those characters, including Tag. I think Wind Dancer was on there, or maybe she gets shot in the head a bit later. It's incredibly violent, really nasty. Okay, so I'm going to just hand over to Nick and get your thoughts on the new X-Men. Generally, we read 3 little groups of comics. So there's only 45 issues of this.
Yeah.
My last thing is I think it's terrific, but I think unfortunately because it's within all these events, it kind of falls by the wayside, and like a lot of the stuff doesn't really happen, doesn't really develop beyond this. But the setup is really exciting and really brutal. These kids go through hell, literally. They go to hell at one point.
They do. Yeah. I did enjoy it. I think the thing which I struggle with, and what probably put me off in the first place, is the volume of characters. There's a lot of characters in this, and I think without reading it from the start, just picking out these few issues, I struggled to work out who everyone was and what the relationships were between them a little bit.
Yeah.
So I found that quite, and I think that was the thing that initially put me off on this sort of comic, was here's just another bunch of mutants, a lot of them that you've got to try and get your head around, whilst already there being a number of existing X-Men in a number of other books at this point. I remember thinking this is just too many. But there are interesting characters in here. I really liked the dynamic between Anole. As you say, it means lizard, and he's basically got sort of a green lizardy skin and a long lizardy tongue, a lot like Toad. And the dynamic between him and Rockslide, who's basically a bunch of living rocks bashed together that he can control.
He's kind of the Thing, and he does have a similar to the Thing personality, but it still doesn't feel too derivative. It feels like he's...
No, because he can sort of shape the rocks and form himself around them, so he's got more control over his sort of power. So it felt like the next step up from the Thing, almost in terms of a power set. But
He's
I like
kind
the
of
dynamic
mixed
in
with
which
Swamp Thing.
Yes, yeah, like an Earth equivalent of Swamp Thing.
I think Beast says at one point, you're no longer you're no longer a human. You are a disembodied spirit. That creates its form again out of rocks.
Yeah, he's a psychic entity effectively that can just recreate his body. So I guess that functionally makes him immortal.
I like that he's got that, but he comes with no kind of wisdom or anything. He's basically a big stupid sports jock who just acts like a prat. He's a sort of a character you get in the White Lotus or something in terms of his personality. He's fun.
But I think they felt like genuine teenagers more in this than they have done in previous ones. They felt like, particularly Rockslide, like you say, he felt like this is what a sort of slightly jockish, pop culture guy would be like as a 15-year-old who discovers he's got powers. He's the one who's like, oh, this is cool and we can do cool stuff. And I quite like the dynamic between him and Anole, which is that they sort of profess to hate each other, but actually they're best mates.
Yeah.
It's quite a nice.
Yeah. I've got a bit. Shall I give a bit while we're on Anole and Rockslide? Shall I give a bit of info about them, Nick? Shall I
Yeah, yeah. Let's get some stats out.
So Anole, his real name is Victor Borkowski. He appeared in New Mutants, Volume 2, Number 3 in 2002. He's got 290 appearances. He's 5'9", 56 kilograms, so just a little fella, bless him. He's covered in a green carapace with a big right arm. He gets the big right arm during these comics. So despite being a little lizard boy, lovely little Victor came from an accepting community, apparently, until anti-mutant sentiment spread and he shifted off to Xavier's. Yeah, this is a point in Marvel where the mutants are just, as I say, under attack. It's really dangerous to be a mutant at all. And yeah, I think they really get across, like nowadays with climate change, the pandemic, everything that's going on with Trump and Russia and all this stuff. I think they get across this feeling of kids just feeling scared. There's one whole bit where they work out which one of them is the youngest, and they're working it out because they think the youngest is going to die.
Yeah.
The youngest mutant on the planet, because now they can say, because they know how many mutants there are, so they can say which one is the youngest. A bit like Children of Men, actually. It's got that feel. So I think they do get across that understandable and really upsetting anxiety that, a lot of teenagers have nowadays. I think it's very insightful, dare I say.
Yeah.
So Anole stays as more of a background character for a long time. He just looks really cool. It's a great design for his first few appearances. And Xavier's, as I say, is more of a high school drama. Apparently, I haven't read this comic, but apparently he has a good connection with his teacher, North Star, who's one of the first openly gay characters. And he helps Anole come to terms with the fact that he's also gay. North Star gets killed, boo, but he comes back, yay. But he's mind controlled and beats Anole. So he's had a rough ride, like all of them, but he keeps on smiling. Got a very youthful, positive approach to life, despite going through decimations, being sent to limbo, growing a massive armored right arm when his original is cut off. He has a close friendship with fellow ex-kid Rockslide, despite him doing things like outing him as gay in front of everyone, trying to convince him to cut his other arm off so it grows back stronger. I thought that was quite funny. Yeah. Go on, cut the other one off, because he's a lizard, so he grows back his arms, obviously. Anole stays a constant in the X-Men stories for the next few years. I think everyone just really likes him and he's really fun to draw. Most recently during the Krakoa era, which I won't go into because we've talked about it in loads of episodes, but do you remember that story? He seemed to regress quite a lot and become like a little kid, and he's hanging out with like Honey Badger, and they sort of seem to make him about 10 years old rather than 16 or whatever he's meant to be. And he gets sucked into a devious plot with the Shadow King. You know that one where the Shadow King kind of becomes a sort of, it's quite sinister,
right. Actually,
convincing them of stuff. But Anole suddenly seems like he's a little kid. There may well have been a story where he gets turned into a little kid. That happens to most of the X-Men. So Rockslide, real name Santo Vaccaro, 310 appearances. He's 6'2" and 218 kilograms. We're talking Kingpin level here. Yeah. He appeared in New Mutants number 3, straight after Anole. He was always a big lad. Sadly, he ended up being a bit of a bully, apparently, when he was a kid. He was a bit of a bully. Big sports jock, top of all the teams. Is that a phrase? Top of all the teams? That's one for the other boys.
Let's say yes. I have absolutely no idea.
Did people say things like, Gary Lineker, he's top of all the teams?
Yes, he's the best kick man we have.
That's the kind of thing sports people say, I think. But he gets his powers and they turn him into the big grey rock man, as I say, who can shoot off his limbs and regrow them, like Anole. So they've got a couple of things in common there. His parents still accept him, apparently. They haven't got a problem with it. But the teams that he was top of, they kick him out. He joins Xavier's, makes a lot of friends with his constant jokes and comments. He's obsessed with girls and acts like a big silly rock geezer, sometimes a bit inappropriately. He hates the Young Avengers, which I found quite funny. He has this right. He finds it really annoying that there's a Young Avengers and keeps saying how they're dweebs. When he gets completely obliterated by Nimrod, then reforms, he discovers he's actually a disembodied spirit forming out of rock rather than just a big lad covered in rocks. Bit like Swamp Thing, as I say. And like his best pal Anole, Rockslide is a mainstay of the X-Men for years, until during the Krakoa era, he dies on Otherworld, which is kind of fairyland. I do not like the fairyland stuff, I'm saying. And he's reborn. It's basically in Krakoa, they can resurrect any character. But if you die in Otherworld and you're resurrected, you come back differently. So he comes back as this like creature with no mind of his own. And I think eventually the real Rockslide comes back, and it becomes a bit like that bit in WandaVision about Theseus's ship. Is the copy real or just a copy? All that kind of stuff. But luckily, he also gets destroyed, so it's fine. We don't have to worry about that anymore. That philosophical problem. So yeah, that's Anole and Rockslide, who I'd put at the top. I love them a lot.
Yeah.
Did you read those little extra ones?
Yes, and we are going to talk about those for a little mini episode. So make sure you sign up to the Patreon to hear us talk a little.
Sign up for that. They're a lot of fun.
Rockslide.
I love those episodes. But yeah, we'll get onto them later. Should we move on to Surge?
Yeah.
Surge, not Surge as in the meerkat. Surge as in a bloody surge. Real name Noriko, Nori for short, Ashida. She appeared in New Mutants #8. She is 5'7", 52 kilograms, dyed blue hair. She looks very cool. She looks very funky. Let's not deny that. She controls electricity and moves super fast. She's Japanese. And when she got her powers, everyone freaked out. She somehow ran away to the USA. She was living homeless on the streets. She went to Xavier's. Hellion, who we're going to talk about in a minute, who's a bit of a dick, turned her away because she was homeless. And then everyone was like, what have you done? She was a mutant looking for help. That's what we're here for. So Elixir found her and they brought her back to the X-Men. Beast gave her gauntlets to control her power, which she's worn ever since. There's a lot of that in X-Men, isn't there, where they get some sort of robot leg or robot arms.
Yeah. And it's normally designed by either Beast or Forge.
It always happens a bit too easy. And I think it's a real problem, like with Cyclops' eyes, how obviously Professor X gives him the thing, the visor, but you're like, well, what happened before that? Because I'm presuming there was a significant period of time where he's blasting everything he looks at. They do explain it in one story, but it's kind of like, oh, I just happened upon this piece of ruby quartz.
Yeah. As you do. I mean, I happen upon pieces of ruby quartz all the time.
Oh, I'm tripping up over them. It's really... Yeah. So Surge is actually kind of the heart of this book. She's almost, I'd say she was #1 on the call sheet, if there was such a thing. If they adapted this, which they probably never will, except in really rubbish ways. Like they put a couple of them in X-Men 3, but you wouldn't even know it was them, kind of thing, that kind of stuff. But then after that, she weirdly sort of disappears. As a character, she's tough, no nonsense. She calls out dickheads like Hellion. She becomes the leader of the group. She has a difficult relationship with Prodigy, which is quite fun. A bit of romance going on there where she loves him, but she's scared he'll die and she has to protect him. Cyclops stuff, where she's trying to be the leader, but what if someone dies on my watch and all that? She gets in a lot of butting heads with Hellion because he wants to be the leader. Eventually, she died recently fighting Nuclo, apparently. I'm not sure what Nuclo is. She just completely vanishes. And sadly, apparently the only reference to her in the whole Krakoa era is you see her firing some energy into the air at a party once. That's a bit tragic, isn't it? But that is, I think, is something that happens quite a lot with comics. You get these good writers create this whole thing. It happens a bit with the Initiative, I think, where they create all these brilliant characters, or, good to brilliant. None of them are particularly bad. And it's quite a rich, wealthy world. It's quite a rich world, and then they just kind of all vanish, or they become kind of characters who you just kill off in the next writer just goes, oh, you just see them in a big battle. Oh no, we lost Surge. Okay, who's Surge? Oh, one of the characters, And I think that's one of the problems with ongoing art, isn't it? Where it's people pick up the baton, carry on with it.
But I think particularly with X-Men, where it's an ensemble thing where characters come in and go, and there's been so many teams over the years and so many different members of those teams, it's hard to keep that volume of characters going. And there are always going to be favourites that get prioritised over the ones just to keep it going. But what you'll probably find is, another couple of years, there'll be a writer that grew up loving new X-Men and be suddenly like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to bring half of these back because we haven't seen them for 10 years. And I think
that's very true. Like what
that happened with the new Mutants in the first place. Like you said, it came about in the 80s originally.
Yeah.
Went away for a little while, then got brought back in the 2000s. And I think because people were like, oh, we haven't really done much with these characters apart from like put some of them in the X-Men for a bit.
Or a good example of that is Monet from Generation X, which we'll get to at some point. But I feel like she comes back and joins the main X-Men randomly, and then Jonathan Hickman, I think, turns her into a really good character, and
Yeah.
she
Yeah, it
becomes
does
like
happen.
almost as up there with kind of Storm and Wolverine.
Yeah.
But she was just a minor character in Generation X, which is a kind of pretty much forgotten. Yeah, they do it a lot as well because obviously they're constantly trying to generate new material. So it's like, here's a whole new load of X-Men. We're
Yeah.
throwing out literally new X-Men. But I think for my money, I think this run that we read, we'll talk a bit more in a sec, but I think it's one of, if not the best since Chris Claremont in terms of handling dynamics.
It's high
Not the
praise.
best X-Men run, but as in
Yeah.
the best kind of spin-off that nails that the relationships, the soap opera element without the soap opera, because in the 90s they try and do the Chris Claremont soap opera and it's just unbearable because it's just people talking for ages but not really saying anything of worth. Whereas I feel like the dynamics, I'm interested. I like, their little romances and hatreds and Anole being outed as gay. I thought that was felt a very truthful moment. He just but him and Rockslide remain friends. Even though he kind of hates Rockslide for it, he's also for doing that. I think I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think I see what you mean. Yes, definitely in terms of the relationships. I think it's quite they're relatively convincing. I think it goes back to what I said of they do feel like genuine, as close as you're going to get in a adult writer writing it, but as close as you can get to like proper teenage feeling interactions.
Yeah.
It feels like this is how a bunch of teens put together would probably interact with each other, rather than them just being another group of proto X-Men. It's like actually there are teenage mutants without the Ninja Turtles bit.
And they even sort of touch on that kind of thing, don't they? But I think the way, but also I like how Rockslide has, my favorite bit is where he just, something happens or someone denies him something and he goes, oh, Hulk's sad, so I like the way they live in a world where they can make comments and jokes about the Marvel universe that came before them.
Yes.
I love it.
Actually, you're right. That's nice. Like you say, Rockslide's thing about the Young Avengers, it feels like it's like someone commenting on, why have they got young ones? We started off having young mutants first. Why have they now got young ones? That's our thing.
I really think it's fun. I mean, the one thing I'd say is, who's it for in a way, in that it's so relentlessly bleak. Such worse things happen to these guys than happen to like Wolverine, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
On an issue-to-issue basis. Well, on that note, did you write anything for Mercury, Hellion?
Yeah, I was just going to say. So in the ones we read, there's some pretty horrible stuff happens to Mercury. So Mercury, again, first appearance again is New Mutants Volume 2, Number 2. Unsurprisingly, she is 5'4" and 51 kilograms. Pretty tiny.
Yeah.
Real name Cecily Kincaid, and she's appeared in about 157 comics. So when she is younger, she suddenly wakes up one morning to discover that her body's morphed into this sort of liquid mercury-like metal. And her parents
T-1000.
And her parents, in what's becoming a theme so far with all of these new X-Men types, ship her off to the Xavier Academy because they're freaked out by it and see what they can do about it.
I like that in this world, though, by this point, that's a acceptable option.
Yeah.
As opposed to, the school is known. It's not this just weird thing that has like 5 students.
Yeah.
And being a 150-year-old man with claws.
It does feel very much like it's the dumping ground. Everyone's reaction seems to be, oh, mutant, ship them off to Xavier's, off they go, get rid of them.
Shipping them off to the army or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so she joins up with the New Mutants, the new X-Men at the Xavier Academy. She becomes very close with Hellion, and like you were saying in terms of brutal stuff, she survives this attack by the original scientists behind the Wolverine Weapon X program, those wacky Weapon X scientists and their experiments. So
X-23 scientists. I'm not sure if it's.
Oh, it's X-23. Yeah.
Yeah, who is Wolverine's daughter
Clone.
from the movie Logan. Yeah.
So they,
I mean, it might as well be the same, but yeah.
but these X-23 scientists want to extract her Mercury essence to effectively use it to coat these super mutant hunting predator creatures called Predator X.
Yeah.
And that whole thing is pretty horrific, like you're saying, what they're doing to her, sort of torturing her and
They're kind of skinning her.
Yeah,
they're like using a laser to remove bits of her. It's really horrible, and she's screaming. And then also there's a character called Mamomax, who's a big elephant man, who's like in the next cell, sort of going, you know who you've got here? The Brotherhood are gonna come and save me. Who do you think? You know. And then they release Predator X, who eats him. It's really
yeah.
And Predator X at first has no skin either. It's this big dog-like, wolf-like creature.
Yeah, it's with sort of exposed muscle.
Yeah. And then they put the Mercury on him from Mercury.
Yeah.
Ooh,
pretty gross. Yeah, and she sort of, much like Surge, she hangs around the X-Men for a long while, but it's hard to say she does anything of note after the kind of new X-Men run, particularly.
Yeah, she has a moving moment where she really connects with X-23 because she understands what she's been through. I thought that was quite a good scene where it's like post her torture trauma.
Yeah,
just kind of connecting on. I don't know. It felt very real. There could be a real parallel to, like, you know, two people going through some sort of hideous trauma and going, now I understand what you're talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's early days for X-23 at this point because she's only just sort of recently been like discovered and joined the team. And I wasn't too sure about this bit, but Emma Frost seems to sort of inexplicably really hate her.
Yeah,
I wasn't really convinced why. I didn't really seem to get what Emma's problem was with her, other than just being a bit of an arsehole to her.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say also, because of all the events that we talked about earlier, Emma Frost does a thing where she decides only some of these kids are going to be X-Men and just creates a big battle royale and basically says whoever walks out of here, just makes them all fight in the danger room.
Yeah.
And whoever walks out gets to be the X-Men, which is quite fun.
I guess she's always had that element in that she was, you know, Hellfire Club White Queen, so she was never a good guy to start with. But obviously at this point she's been with the X-Men for quite a long while, and she's in a relationship with Cyclops at this point as well. So that's
what she brings to the team is ruthlessness.
Yeah. But I thought it just seemed I didn't really get what her particular problem was with X-23. I didn't think that came across clearly in the ones I was reading. She seemed to have a problem, and I didn't really get why. Maybe I just missed something in that, but yeah.
Something about her being a killer and a sort of instinct. I mean, X-23 wasn't. We'll do X-23 another time, but she obviously was created to be an assassin at this point, has killed quite a lot of people and is untrustworthy. But then same for Wolverine, so, you know.
Yeah, we'll do X-23 when we get to X in 2047.
Yes. Hellion?
Yes. Is it Hellion? I thought it was Hellion, because isn't it?
Is it Hellion? I always say Helium, but yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, because I think they were Hellions because she was part of the Hellfire Club. That's how I read it.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh,
yeah.
Hellions.
That's what I thought. So yeah, he first appears again, New Mutants #2. His real name, Julian Keller. He is 5'10" and
That's the name of the sort of guy who writes self-help science books.
Yeah, there's a Jordan Peterson vibe to it.
Yeah.
Julian Keller.
Or sort of I can make you thin in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Which would be great. Sorry.
He's appeared in 198 comics. 198. That feels very appropriate to the whole decimation thing we were talking about. He is... it's a common theme. He is shipped off to Xavier's Academy, but this time just by very wealthy parents. So it just sounds like they just want rid of him because they're rich and they don't really want their son hanging around. He becomes part of the revamped New Mutants. He takes on the codename Hellion as a tribute to Emma Frost because she makes him leader of her Hellion squad that she sets up. So he takes that on as his code name.
Oh yeah, you have, before the Battle Royale, you have like 8 squads. And I mean, that's a huge amount of characters. Can you see why they just killed off? They killed 100 of them or something.
Yeah.
So she whittles it down to these 6
Yeah.
or 7 new X-Men.
And he's a super powerful mutant. So he's an Omega level mutant, which is basically your Magneto Phoenix level mutant. And he has what's called cosmic telekinesis.
Oh, wow.
So he has a sort of ridiculously powerful level of telekinesis. And actually, in the ones we were reading, he's struggling to control that power level. In the ones we looked at, Beast's asking him to use his telekinesis to pick up a paper clip, which he keeps sort of, he's got that sort of front element to him. He's like, yeah, I can do, of course I can pick up a paper clip. I don't need to prove myself. And then when he tries to do it, he smashes out half the floor. So it's like, yeah, maybe you do need a bit of help on that
Isn't
one.
that thing where when they, when the run is finished and then these characters just vanish, and it's like, but like you say, he should be up there with Magnet. He should be a major threat.
Now he has come back in recent times, post the Krakoan era, with a new code name of the Krakoan, and he's set himself up as a sort of pro Krakoa anti-human terrorist almost.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
He's kind of a Punisher for mutants character.
Yeah, so he's kind of committing terrorist acts in the name of, he basically wants to restore Krakoa after the fall of the nation. So he sets himself up as the Krakoan in order.
I haven't caught up with any of those yet because
that's in the new NYX comic.
Okay. Oh, so is NYX kind of carrying on some of these new X-Men characters?
Yes, partly it's NYX. I would say is the nearest equivalent to this because it's a group of young ones. So it's got Miss Marvel. I think Prodigy's in it, but as a teacher at the university that they're at. So he's a teacher there. And it's got some of the kind of younger cast again. So NYX is probably the nearest modern equivalent to your New Mutants, New X-Men.
So in a nutshell, I'd say he's kind of the snotty rich kid.
Yeah, he's definitely the most
learns to be nice.
Yeah, he's the most obviously dickish of the.
But fun. Bunch. He's a kind of like Iceman in Top Gun.
You know what? I've never seen Top Gun.
Oh, okay. Well, the kind of rival.
Yeah.
Guy to the main guy who kind of like bullies him a bit. And
I never watched Top Gun at the time, and I just felt post the 80s it wasn't worth it.
I've seen it and the sequel, and I find both very average. I think I'm one of the only people who has that. I
feel like I'd be the same. That's why I'm not going to bother.
It's a sort of sports movie, but with fighter planes, I'd say.
Yes, I think that's why it doesn't interest me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Do any of the planes turn into a giant robot at any point? No.
That's the whole third act.
Oh, okay. I'm on board.
It's great.
I'm in.
The weird thing with Top Gun is it's kind of like they can't really say who the enemy is for some reason because it's kind of like trying to not be political, I guess. So it's just kind of vaguely far. I mean, I think it's North Korea in the second one, but it's, you know what I mean? But it's like also we're not at war. I guess it's that weird thing where it's not a war movie, but there is kind of maneuvers.
There has to be an enemy, but we don't want to specifically say it's this one.
Yeah, it's a weird, and for some reason that makes me not particularly buy into it. Anyway, great. Who's the last one?
So the last one's
Josh Foley.
Elixir. Yeah.
For some reason, all their names are in my head, even though I don't really know these comics that well. Josh Foley, Elixir.
He pops up in New Mutants 5. Mm-hmm. So they're all in the same basic bunch of comics.
They're all the same year group.
Yeah. 5'9", 71 kilograms. Other aliases include Black Bishop. Don't know that one. And
but I think I'll settle on Elixir.
Yeah. And Golden Boy, which does make sense because he has gold skin.
Yeah, he looks exactly like Adam Warlock.
Yeah,
without those clothes.
He's got a slightly more interesting initial backstory to the others. He was originally part of the anti-mutant group, the Reavers, and once his mutant power kicks in and they discover he's a mutant who's part of this anti-mutant group, both the Reavers and his own parents disown him. And he actually reluctantly joins the Xavier Academy before sort of being won over and brought round to the sort of mutant cause.
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. And And during that time when he initially joins, his secondary mutation kicks in. So his main mutation is his healing ability. His secondary mutation kicks in, which is having golden skin. It's not the greatest secondary mutation. I feel like
that's the secondary mutation. I thought he just had it the way Beast is blue.
No, it kicks in as a secondary mutation. So he's not golden in it originally, and then it sort of kicks in, and I feel like the whole secondary mutation thing was a way for them to just introduce characters looking a bit different.
That was a Grant Morrison idea.
Yeah, and I think
I don't mind
put that in.
I think it's fun.
It just feels a bit like the secondary mutation always just seems like it's not much of a mutation, really. It's like,
yeah,
the secondary mutation is you look a bit gold. Well, okay.
It helps with stuff like Magneto. Oh, also he can still be sort of 40, even though
he's 104 by now.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You can use it quite. I don't know if they've done it for that reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Where it helps plot.
Look, it's not the worst mutation to have, like, having your digestive system replaced by 2 sentient slugs. We'll get onto Maggot eventually.
Maggot. So let's wrap up Josh Foley. What?
Yes. So actually, when they do found, the important thing about Elixir actually is when they do found Krakoa, he becomes one of the most important mutants because he joins with 4 other mutants to form what they call a circuit. And these 5 mutants give them the capability to resurrect mutants. So on Krakoa, Elixir is one of the most important mutants around because he gives them that ability to bring any mutant back from the dead, which is quite handy really.
Very handy. One of the most handiest things you could have. Yeah. Well, we'll get onto the whole 5. I don't know when we'll do that. That's the 5. What are they called? They're called the 5, aren't they? I
think they're just the 5. Yeah.
Can bring people back.
Yeah.
And that's amazing stuff. We'll get to that. But I think generally as a character, I like, he also gets a kind of dark side, doesn't he? So he can turn completely black and kill with a touch.
I don't think I saw that. Was that in one of the ones we read?
Yeah, he kind of has. So I think at one point he has one hand that heals and one hand that kills, which is a fun. It's not a secondary mutation. It's just how his power can flip between healing and killing.
You don't want to get them mixed up. You really want to know your left from your right on that.
Luckily, your whole hand goes black, so it's quite clear. I like. There's a really nice bit where he has a complete breakdown, basically. I think because he's killed someone with his black hand, and then he's like for days just thinking, or like for a whole day just by himself, just freaking out, and then someone turns up.
Oh,
do you want to make out? And he suddenly goes gold again, and he's like, "Yeah, all right." Which again, I think is quite a good.
Well, it's a genuine teenage response to that kind of situation.
Brilliant. I love it. I think they've really nailed something that I think very few of these sort of things have, and I think if they could adapt it into a kind of Netflix cartoon or something. I think the problem is it goes so brutal, and so you got Predator X hunting them down, you got Mercury having bits chopped off of the whole X-23, and she's like slashing herself and killing people, and then they all get blown up on a bus. It's real. I mean, it's pushing. I know. I like I say, I think it's interesting that they show that kids do go through rough stuff, but this is like, I mean, this is really pushing it. And you feel like the X-Men, they appear in it a lot as their teachers and protectors and stuff, and you start to feel like, what are you lot doing? Which they do question. Cyclops is like, I've let you down, you guys. And it's like, they're all getting killed and tortured. Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't be in charge, dude, because you are. Yeah. This is not.
There was one point where he was talking about he left them alone, even though he knew they're in danger, because he thought they'd be all right, and then they weren't. He was like, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that, should I?" I was like, "No. Why did you leave a load of kids in your care alone when you knew they were in danger?"
Yeah, and from people with missiles and stuff.
Yeah.
And also like you get this. Yeah, I like it a lot, but you do feel like you have that kind of thing of them constantly having to sneak out, and I've told you that to not get involved in this case, like stowaways. Don't, whatever you do, don't try and rescue them. So then it's the scene of them sneaking out so they can rescue someone. But then at the same time, what I like, the writers really get across the idea that they're scared of death, and they think something bad's going to happen to them, and they're just riddled with anxiety. So it's not a very fun read in some ways in that sense, but I like him a lot. Like him a lot.
Also,
So,
like you were saying, for an academy, none of the X-Men have been through teacher training. You know, not one of them has got a qualification.
yeah,
They're not going to get passed by Ofsted on an inspection for any of this.
was that
Oh,
thing?
a danger room. You've got a room called a danger room that might, if the safeties are off, kill them. That's not getting you outstanding from Ofsted.
They're going to get special measures, aren't they? They really are. I mean, but then that it does go into that thing where they are kind of a cult. You know, because
Yeah.
Professor X is kind of they are like one of those very dodgy schools that like people I know who went to and told me about, where it's really like this isn't okay what we're learning and stuff here.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they are under attack by the entire world. So
I mean, that is true. Yeah, Professor X is definitely, now you say that, Professor X as a cult leader makes him make a lot more sense.
yeah, but I actually find those ones where he's trying to navigate keeping up, you know, being legit, appearing legit, but actually doing this stuff quite interesting. I think he has to do that. But anyway, let's stick them in the order. First of all, as a group, where would you put them? Fantastic Four at the top. Would you put them above the Agents of Atlas?
Just trying to get the order. What have we got in the order? But that puts them above the Serpent Society.
You don't want to do that?
Oh, I don't know. I do like the Serpent Society.
Okay, where do you want to stick them?
Maybe they're between AIM and the Serpent Society.
Okay, they're at number 4. Wonderful. New X-Men. Now, as those characters, where would you put them? Okay, should we start with the first two who we like the most, I think, Anole and Rockslide.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think they're high, and they've got the most appearances as well. So I think it's clear that people like them in general. But
Okay.
yeah, I
them in the top 20.
like their dynamics. So I think they're further up the list.
Would we put them above Foggy Nelson, below Adam Warlock? Or maybe above Adam Warlock? I feel like Adam Warlock's got a lot more history and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if that.
You don't think that high?
I mean, maybe just below Foggy.
Below Foggy. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're still above Winter Soldier and stuff. I think that's all right. I'm not a huge fan of Winter Soldier.
I think that's fine.
Okay, shall I go Rockslide, then Anole?
Yeah.
That sounds right, doesn't it?
I think that feels good.
Anole doesn't really develop as a character, but I just really like him.
Yeah, I think
So much fun and so cute.
I think he's riding on Rockslide's coattails a little bit, maybe, but that's fine.
He's a bit Yodery, not as a
Yeah.
character, but he's looks a bit Yodery. He's a bit like, who does he remind me of? He looks a bit like Leech or something.
That's what I was just about to say. He's like a sort of slightly adult Leech.
Oh, Beast Boy. He's like Beast Boy in Teen Titans.
Of course. Yeah,
He's got that Beast Boy kind of fun. He'd have the voice of Beast Boy, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I like him a lot. Yeah. Okay, so next couple, Surge and Mercury. Where would we put those? I still think they're better. I don't think we could put them above Gambit, can we?
No.
But I'd say probably after Gambit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They're better than like Callisto and Caliban and Saber.
Yeah, they're more developed, aren't they? I'm going to put Surge, then Mercury.
Yeah.
And then, this is very civilized, isn't it, this discussion? And then, who's left? Hellion and Elixir.
I mean, Elixir is quite important.
Quite interesting as well.
And yeah, and I like you said, I hadn't really properly focused on the life hand, death hand thing, which is quite fun.
I think Angel Salvador, who's a Grant Morrison character, is still better than both of them as a character, more interesting.
Where have we got Angel in the list?
24. So, I mean, can we put them above Winter Soldier? Maybe not. I still think they're probably better than Leader and Falcon. I know Falcon's a long-running character, but he's never that interesting.
I would probably split them. I would put Elixir slightly higher and Hellion slightly lower.
Okay, give me the numbers, bud. You're in charge here.
Let's put Elixir above Leader.
Okay.
And Hellion below Falcon.
Good work. This is important work. This is very important work.
This is the whole reason we're doing it.
Hellion. Great. So he's above Amadeus Cho. I'm not sure.
No, maybe not.
Okay,
Maybe below Amadeus and above. No, maybe he's below. He's got to be below Gambit, hasn't he?
Okay, put him one below Gambit. So he's above Surge.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Do you know what? It's getting fiddlier now. We've got more characters on the list.
It's getting trickier, isn't it? We've now done 89 characters.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of characters. All right.
Out of 50,072.
It probably is something like that. Thank you so much for listening, dear listeners. Don't forget to jump on the patreon.com/abombtozzzax and do all those other things. And also send Nick a message. Your thoughts, your reviews, your own. Do you agree with us? Are the new X-Men that good? Do you think they were just very forgettable? Or do you think they were awesome and you cannot believe we have not put them at the top? You are furious. Either way, we just like to hear, don't we, Nick? So.
We do.
Send us a Gmail to abombtozzzax@gmail.com and we will see you later. That's goodbye from me. We really need a way to end this.
And I'll end it by saying it's also goodbye from me. Yeah, that wasn't a great ending, was it? But it will do.
Oh, it was all right. It was all right.
It's no Sphinx or out, but you know.
Keep on fripping.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to abombtozzzax, my favorite Marvel character, with me, Colin Holt, and my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. There they go! Please remember to support us at patreon.com/abombtozzzax.